Hey everybody, I'm Viviana Hurtado from Latinas for Latino Lit. You can reach us at our URL, www.latinas, and then the number 4, latinolit.org. Again, that's latinasforlatinolit.org. And I am so over the moon, as is my partner, Monica Olivera, who is tuning in from North Carolina to have with you our first Lunchtime Author Google Hangout with award-winning author Margarita Engle. Hi, Margarita.
Hi, thank you so much for inviting me.
We're so psyched to have you. I'm in Washington, D.C. Margarita joins us from her offices in Fresno, California. I just want to let everybody know very quickly, I'm going to brag about you for a minute, Margarita. It's truly an honor to have Margarita with us to kick off this summer series that goes along with our Latinas for Latino Lit, our Latino Children's Summer Reading Program, which is going on right now. And it's 100% free, started on June the 1st and runs through August the 10th. Margarita has been one of our most supportive as well as our favorite authors. And she is in our reading program, forms part of our lists. But also we wanted to let you know that she's got some big news coming up. An award-winning author, including a winner of the prestigious PEN USA Award, and she's got some terrific books that everybody from any background would just absolutely love and connect with because of the universal themes and topics of love and of journeys. One that's coming up actually this year is Enchanted Air, Two Cultures, Two Wings, that's going to be published. Margarita, tell us a little bit about your upcoming projects, including Enchanted Air, Two Cultures, Two Wings. Fantastic name. So let's start with that. Why did you choose that? Oh, I see it.
Thank you. Yes, it has a beautiful cover by Adel Rodriguez, who also did The Surrender Tree and The Lightning Dreamer. And this picture says it all. This is what the book is about. It's about flying back and forth between California and Cuba as a child because the school year was here in Los Angeles, big crowded city, and my summers were in Cuba as often as possible with family in small towns and on farms. And so for me, it was two different worlds, and it's a memoir, my memories of belonging to two different worlds, and those moments when you're not sure where you belong, and then of course with the missile crisis and travel becoming illegal for US citizens, because I was born and raised in California, so I'm a US citizen. The terrible trauma of having the family split, and then the hope for reconciliation. So it's really a childhood memoir up through my early teen years.
This is a great kickoff point to, I think, a question that a lot of people have. And it's if you could tell us when you knew you wanted to be an author, and you know, what kind of what pulled you in that direction? I can see that this rich background that you had shuttling for a while physically between two cultures, the island in California, probably is rich, fertile material for an author.
I was a very emotional child, and poetry is the place where children put emotions. So I read a lot of poetry and wrote a lot of poetry as a small child, and eventually, much later in teen years, tried stories, and then became a scientist and did a lot of technical writing and came back to fiction and poetry later in life. And the older I get, the more I lean towards poetry and the less towards facts and figures.
I wanted to ask you, I have to say that in my experience growing up, and Margarita, like you, I spent my childhood summers. I was born in California as well, like you. And I spent my summers in my parents' homeland of Colombia. My folks are immigrants. And I have to say that I actually wasn't exposed full force into US Latino literature until much older, until college actually, and even Spanish and Latin American literature. It wasn't really until college that I became exposed to that. Can you tell us a little bit what it's been like being an author in America? It's a tough road in general to be an author. It's tough to be published, but can you tell us about some of the, I guess, exclamation points and high points, but also some of the challenges you've had trying to make it in a business that's tough?
I think one of my greatest challenges is being faithful to poetry and wanting to continue in poetry rather than in the aspects of children's literature that would be considered very popular, very marketable, you know, the ones that you'd see on the front shelf at Barnes and Noble. And because my writing mentor was Tomas Rivera, he was my professor at UC Riverside. He taught me one important thing that I've never forgotten, and that is to write from the heart. So those of you who are out there wanting to write, I would pass along his advice to write from the heart without worrying about whether it will ever be published and without worrying about whether it will ever be popular. The two things don't go together. You can't do them at the same time. You can't tell the truth of your heart and worry about the future at the same time. You have to be right now in the moment of the actual writing. And all the other stuff comes later.
For anybody, by the way, who just might need this reminder, Tomás Rivera, of course, is the great American, great Chicano scholar, as well as a writer. There's an institute, the Tomás Rivera Institute, that's named after him as well. And truly a great and one of the pioneers in, you know, this body of literature, this corpus, literary corpus of literature that in the Southwest is very Mexican American or Chicano, but that we today call US Latino literature. So that actually brings up a good question, which is, you know, some people have no idea that US Latinos have been writing for a while. You know, it's like the 2010 census came out and everybody was like, whoa, where did all these Latinos come from? Because of our incredible demographic growth, not just in the California and the Texas and the Floridas of the world, what I like to call the usual suspects, but all over North Carolina, Arkansas. And so some people might think, you know, the mainstream might think, wow, you know, these US Latino authors, a US Latina poet, children's lit author is, you know, kind of a new phenomenon, but it's actually a body of literature that's been around for, you know, many decades. I mean, at least since the 60s, although it could go much further back. Can you tell us about, I guess, what is the responsibility that you feel and maybe the burden of being considered a Latina children's lit author or Latina author? Are there times that you just want to say like, hey, I'm just me?
I think that it's just a great privilege, not a burden at all. And I feel like my only obligation is to be honest and yet also hopeful. The one thing I won't do for children is write a story or a poem with a hopeless ending. I think that we owe it to children, no matter how much we see problems in the world, we owe it to them to see the world when we write, to remember what it's like to have everything ahead of you and to see the world as hopeful and to write that way. So I select my stories. I select the people that I admire, that I want to write biographical work about, because they did something amazing and hopeful. And they often did it when they were very young, such as the drummer in Drum Dream Girl, who knew she wanted to play the drums and everybody said only boys can play the drums. and she did it anyway. Those are the sorts of hopeful stories that I love to find and pass along to others.
I'm pulling up a quote that I found that is actually along these lines of despite what's going on, you're incredibly hopeful. And now I just have to find it on because I posted it on our Google Plus page. But it's precisely about being hopeful and just as important, gratitude. So I'm going to see if I find it, and that's the thing. I have it online, but now I have to go through my screen. Why don't I ask you another question while I find that, so that you can talk, particularly to the young people who are watching, about a terrific award that's coming up in September, which is the Americas Award. That will be bestowed on you and another terrific author that we love at Latinas for Latino Lit, Duncan Tonatwi, and that's the Americas Award at the Library of Congress. Tell us a little bit about what that means. The Library of Congress, of course, is you know, kind of one of those like, wow, you know, I'm walking through these corridors, you know, with walnut walls, walnut paneled walls, like, woo. Tell us a little bit about that award, and you won a lot of awards, but what was it like when you got that phone call, that contact that you got it?
It's so exciting, and that's for this book, Silver People. This is the Americas Award seal, which I already put on ahead of time. Yes, Silver People is Voices from the Panama Canal, and it's one of my few books that is not set in Cuba, one of the few historical ones that is in another country. And I wrote it to honor the Caribbean islanders who were transported to Panama, which was really part of Colombia. It was separated from Colombia just by the US just to build that canal. And there's so much of the history there that people just aren't aware of. But I also use this book to teach rainforest biology and go back to my scientific side. The award is amazing because the Library of Congress is such an amazing place, but also because it's an award for books about the Americas. And I think that's so important, just saying it plural, Las Americas, plural. It's not a book about just about one of the Americas, any of the many Americas, any of the countries of this hemisphere.
And that is something certainly that Jose Marti, also a Cuban poet, wrote about, certainly, and that was one of the dreams of Simon Bolivar, the Latin American George Washington, for lack of a, you know, a reference and a working term, is thinking about our America. And I've oftentimes said, I think it's interesting that it's really in 21st century US of A that a lot of these philosophical yearnings to unite this continent and these peoples and these cultures and this potential is actually coming true in America in the 21st century with this incredible surge of Latinos in the United States. I found the quote, and it's inspiring, not just what you do, but the ethic, Margarita, with which you write. The quote that I found that we put up with the event page for our first Lunchtime Author Hangout is, and I quote, "My heart drums with gratitude. My thoughts sing with hope." End of quote. Tell us a little bit about, you know, this this gratitude, I guess, and how it maybe is weaved through your culture and how you've elevated that into really all parts of your writing, your poetry, your prose.
Well, I'm so grateful for the chance to have traveled. not only to Cuba, but to other parts of Latin America and other parts of the world. And so grateful for all the reading I've had a chance to do and the writing. And I think that that's kind of what's missing in the US educational system. Everybody talks about global, but we really don't give kids a chance to learn about the world. They're mostly reading books set in classrooms just like the one they're sitting in. And I think that when we can offer them a book that takes them through those walls and over some borders and into other times and other minds, it's a really exciting, amazing way to travel and time travel. So I know some people say, oh, history, how boring. Oh, poetry about history, you know, what are you thinking? How are you ever going to sell poetry about history? But it really is a sense of time travel. And so that for me is amazing. And I love to share that with, I know that when I was a child, I wanted to learn about the world. I didn't just want to learn about my own surroundings, but about other countries too. And so I always looked for books about other places and for books in translation from other languages and, you know, places that I still haven't had a chance to visit, different parts of the world. So I know there must be children like that out there now too, who have a curiosity about the world.
I wanted to say that, you know, I think that one of the things that's been really important for us at Latinas for Latino Lit is the importance of literacy, certainly. You know, we kind of have a very basic philosophy, which is that literacy improves lives. That's it. That's our mission statement. We believe that if you get the basics of reading and writing down, the rest will follow. You will do better in school. It will unlock the imagination and inspiration, and you'll want to read more. That will help you perform better and be sharp and on track for STEM that comes later in life. Interestingly, though, you were a scientist before STEM was a buzzword. And one of the things that we've done is really spotlight the authors, the poets who are U.S. Latino and who are writing, because we believe that it's important that we not just spotlight this tradition, but that we support, that Latinos support these authors so that you guys can continue to tell these terrific stories. That connects with what you just said about your curiosity, about how you wanted to travel, about how you wanted to know more. Do you feel that having this experience when you grew up of being of two cultures, of being truly multicultural, because you're not just Cuban and American, but you're a lot of other cultures, and being bilingual and being, you know, biliterate. Can you tell us about that, how that +1 that began as a child is something that you feel is, and that again pulses through all of your work. What can you tell parents about you know, maintaining that cultural curiosity in the home, and any young people, any students that that may be watching, and also when you're younger and you feel these, you know, different pulls, could be something a little bit emotionally tough to navigate.
Well, I just think that that parents should encourage children to keep both languages. And if they don't know one of their languages, then to learn it. And parents who come from a background of only one language, I've visited schools that are immersion schools. There are schools where children are learning Spanish or Chinese or Japanese, you know, under full immersion. And it's just amazing to see kids from all backgrounds understanding each other. I think that anything, as you said, literacy and anything that crosses borders and helps us to understand each other is so important in our society, not only as individuals, but just in the way that we treat each other if we understand each other. So I don't just write for Latino children, I write for children because I know that children from all backgrounds are curious and want to understand the world and learn about each other, not just about themselves. And I do think that's important that we remember that we're not segregating ourselves, that Latino authors are not writing just for Latino children, but for children in general.
I think that that can't be highlighted enough. We L for LL, we work to promote literacy and our authors, but we fully understand that your work is so good. And all of the other authors who are part of our program, part of our reading list, that it could be read, by any child, any student. And that's no different than when I was growing up. I was mentioning to you that I kind of came to Latin American, Spanish, and US Latino literature much later in life. But gosh, I read Dr. Seuss growing up and Judy Blume when I was, so-called young adult. And those books spoke to me. And I think that's really I guess that's the goal, right? That any author or poet works towards is, writing in a way that reaches across borders, across traditions, across backgrounds, and touches and inspires anybody that can identify and that expression. One thing that we just wanted to say, because when I started the Google Hangout, it said, and you can hang out for up to 8 hours, but I have a feeling that you've got some writing to do. My last question to you is, we talked a little bit about the Americas Award that you and Duncan Tonatui will be on September the 18th here in Washington, D.C. at the Library of Congress receiving. I think there's going to be an L for LL contingent in the audience.
Wonderful.
Yeah, a crazed fan, clapping like crazy. But tell us a little bit more about what's next for Margarita Engle. What can we look forward to?
Well, I am looking forward to the American Library Association conference in just a couple of weeks in San Francisco, where I'll be on a diversity panel on Saturday, June 27th at 1 o'clock in the Moscone Convention Center. And followed by signing again of Enchanted Air of my memoir, which is still in the advanced review copy stage, but I'll also have other signings for Drum Dream Girl and for The Sky Painter about Luis Fuertes, the Puerto Rican bird artist who stopped killing birds and learned to paint them while they were alive. So he was a pioneer of conservation as well as science and art. And I look forward to continuing to write about those kinds of people who fought independently, whether men or women, whether they did it when they were still children, like the Drum Dream Girl, or whether it was later in life, but people who thought independently and were courageous enough to do something that nobody had tried before. So many of my books are about people like that, or about people like my grandmother, who in the Wild book, the stories from her childhood, who had the courage to persevere in learning to read and write, even though she had dyslexia. So you mentioned the importance of literacy, but her struggle was for something as simple as learning to read. These people with independent thinking and courage inspire me. And I just know there's so many of them out there who should be so famous, and there should be all sorts of books about them. And the reason there aren't books about them is because usually either because they were a minority or because, in many cases, because they were women, historians didn't include them. They were left out of history. And yet, if we can write about them now, 100 years from now, that will no longer be true. They won't have been left out. So it's really dream of mine to help make people who should be more famous, to help bring them back from having been forgotten by history.
That may be the fountain of youth of Margarita Engle, which is this race against time to find all of these underdogs in history and write their stories, pregonar la historia to the four corners. If you want to learn more about Margarita Engle, you can go to her website. It is her name, margaritaengle.com. That's Margarita, E-N-G-L-E.com. If you go to our website, Latinas for LatinoLit.org, you will also find that we have her listed prominently with our authors that we've highlighted, and that links to Margarita's website. Remember that if you also go to our website, this is the time for you to sign up your kids, your students, if you're a teacher or a group leader in the Boys and Girls Club or a scout troop, for our free summer reading program. Margarita's books are part of our summer reading program. They're featured in our recommended reading list. Don't forget to sign up. And Margarita, we normally sign off most of our communications, Monica and I, with a leer, and we will do this today, but we will also add, keep writing. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. And what you do is so important. It really helps. I love the encouragement. Thank you.
Thank you. Everybody, we will be back. Many thanks to Margarita Engle for kicking off our L4LL author lunchtime Google Hangouts. We will have more coming up, so just keep an eye on our social media. And thank you again, Margarita. Bye-bye.
Bye, thank you.